Okay, maybe it's not exactly 100 hours, but it sure feels like 100 hours. For a good 5 years, from 2013 to 2018, Ascension crossbows were the best ranged weapons in the game, equal in tier only to the noxious longbow, which has only recently been able to compete with crossbows due to Elder God arrows. With the release of Solak and the Blightbound crossbows, Ascensions have lost their #1 spot, but they're significantly more affordable than Blightbounds, so they haven't become completely useless, and they'll likely remain useful into the near future because you need one to make the tier 90 ranged defender. Nonetheless, if you're a main on a budget, these are definitely a fine choice. Just buy them and go bossing. Ironmen are unsurprisingly looking at a long grind if they want even one of these crossbows. So there's this place called the Monastery of Ascension, right? It's the home of the Order of Ascension, a pretty good name considering the name of the monastery. Oculus, the various demon standing outside the monastery, is one of Guthix's guardians, and at some point in the distant past, he set out to preach the folly of worship to those most drawn to worship, humans. But whoops, humans saw this super powerful demon guy and started worshipping him. Of course, the only logical path forward was to begin a human breeding program to create a lineage of independent humans free from the need to worship anything. He kept them hidden away in a cave because nothing says I value freedom and independence much like sequestering sentient beings in darkness. Turns out worship is intrinsic in humans. They'll worship anything more powerful than themselves, so Oculus has this brilliant idea to breed them for strength. His thought process was if we made them strong enough, they wouldn't feel a need to worship gods because they'd be as strong as gods themselves. Sure, his breeding program has had a history of producing unstable, destructive monsters, but what would the harm be in making them stronger? Some crystals here, some of Guthix's tears there. What could possibly go wrong? Forethought? Who cares about forethought? I'm a demon man with tentacle face. I could do anything. Rather than just sitting here sarcastically outlining all of Oculus's mistakes because we'd be here all day, I'll just end with saying that he created several leaders, all of whom kind of broke when they learned of Guthix's death. They began experimenting on people to create a new god to worship, a new Guthix. Oculus is many things, but he's nothing if not willing to correct his mistakes. He'll help adventurers by fashioning a powerful crossbow and provide you with thread that he stole from the Ascension members to create powerful armor. We're interested in the crossbow. For the crossbow, all we need to do is bring him one of each signet from each of the Ascended Legios, a Dragonkin-made crossbow, and 100 Ascension shards. So that's our goal, getting at least one Ascension crossbow, finally, a tier 90 main hand. First of all, Dragon crossbow limbs. They drop from Tormented Demons, a 1 in 256 drop rate, but we already got one a while back while farming for a Tormented Demon soul to make grinding out the Dragon crossbow limbs easier when I would come here later to get the crossbow to make Ascensions. Kinda ironic, but I'm not one to look a gift unicorn in the mouth. The 6 signets have a 1 in 50 chance of dropping from each Legio. If we're on drop rate, then how much of a grind is this really? Kill each boss about 50 times, 6 bosses, we're looking at 300 boss kills. And they only have 30,000 health each. What's the problem? That sounds simple enough. Sounds pretty quick actually compared to some of the other grinds I had to do. Well, here's the thing. You can't just fight the bosses. This was the first tier 90 ranged weapon, which meant Jagex wasn't gonna make this simple. There's an entire dungeon associated with these bosses, full of Slayer monsters. Of course, there needs to be some reason to kill these Slayer monsters. They need to drop something good, right? Every Legio requires a key to fight. 1 key every time the boss spawns. The monsters in the dungeon drop these keys at a 1 in 384 drop rate. There's 6 different keys, so the odds of getting any one key is 1 in 64. Roughly, this means to kill each Legio 50 times, you need to kill just shy of 20,000 Ascension creatures. And this is assuming you hit the drop rate exactly. And really, let's be honest, even though they all have the exact same drop rate, you'll inexplicably find yourself with an imbalanced number of keys. Here's what we'll have to do. And I know I've talked about this before, but hey, content. Of all the Ascension creatures to kill, the easiest ones to kill en masse are Capsarii because they have very low health. But in the Ascension dungeon, they're so spread out. How could this possibly be the fastest, I hear you cry? Shush shush, dry your tears. Let me explain. You capture their souls and place them in your player-owned Slayer dungeon. This, of course, means you'll need 99 Slayer before you can start grinding in this way, but since the Legios require 95 Slayer to fight anyway, it's not that much longer of a wait. For those 1 quest point Ironmen out there, you're stuck with Roarii. Shine on, you beautiful lunatics. I've had 5 Capsarii in my Slayer dungeon for a while now, waiting for the day I would return and slaughter them by the tens of thousands like some sort of prophesied hero. Or villain, I guess. The unique thing about this part of the grind is that it's more optimal to be on the Legacy combat style. See, Legacy is typically less damage per minute, but your individual hits are much higher. Or, well, not exactly, because you could hit 10Ks not in Legacy, but I think your average hits would be higher in Legacy if you optimize things right. Your auto attacks are typically higher in Legacy, I know that much. You know, the minutia doesn't matter. You should do this on Legacy, just trust me. By optimizing your gear setup, it's totally reasonable for you to be able to one-shot Capsarii with a single auto attack. On Legacy, this means hitting at least 375 damage. Here's how I manage that. First, Decimation. It's one of the strongest two-handed ranged weapons that doesn't require ammunition. We're going to be killing a lot of Capsarii, so we don't want to have to be worrying about ammunition. Next, the Precise 6 perk increases your minimum damage by 9% of your maximum damage, 9.9% if your weapon is level 20. You can also get Ruthless 1 paired with your Precise 6, increasing your damage by 0.5% for 20 seconds after you kill an enemy, stacking up to 5 times. P6R1 probably isn't the easiest perk to get, but here's the thing. You could get P6 and Ruthless as 2 separate perks because you actually don't need the Equilibrium perk here. Let me explain. You might think Equilibrium 4 would be really important since it increases your minimum hit by a total of 12% at the cost of decreasing your maximum hit by 4%, but this perk does not stack with the Equilibrium aura, and we'd rather use the aura since it increases our minimum hit by 25% rather than 12%. This does unfortunately limit our grind to within our aura window, but the aura lasts for 2 hours and has a cooldown of 4 hours, and with the recent changes to auras where you can log out and you don't lose the timer on it but the cooldown still ticks down, it's really not that big of an issue anymore. You could effectively log in, turn the aura on, and log out for 4 hours, come back in, do 2 hours, and then turn the aura right back on because it cooled down while you were offline. It's actually not so bad. Another less than obvious addition is the Amulet of Zealots. You see, when your accuracy is far above 100%, it's actually better to use an Amulet of Zealots with one of the Leech prayers instead of Turmoil or its variants. The Amulet of Zealots boosts single stat prayers and Leech curses by a flat 10%. This is additive. So the Leech range strength prayer maxes out at 8%, but with the amulet, it goes up to 18%. The level 99 prayers only give a 12% damage boost. We're talking about a 50% increased boost, all at the cost of a -5 prayer bonus on the amulet. But I mean, that's the only prayer you're using. Who cares? You just bring some prayer potions, you're fine. It's more than worth it. I also have Biting 2 on a piece of armor, but I'm not sure how significant it is in Legacy mode. It doesn't actually affect a minimum hit, or at least I don't think it does. So it's not something you really need to concern yourself with, but I mean, if it's on your armor, I mean, it can't hurt, but I wouldn't worry about it. I don't think it matters. What you do want on that piece of armor though is the Scavenging 4 perk. This doesn't affect the amount of damage you do, obviously, but since you'll be killing tens of thousands of these guys, it only makes sense to bring it along. Typically, you'll proc Scav 4% of the time, every 25 kills, roughly. This means about every 25 kills, you'll get 4 uncommon components. Now that's pretty good on its own, but every time Scavenging 4 procs, there's a 1% chance that those uncommon components will instead be rare components. 4 rare components for nothing. Every 10,000 kills, you're looking at 16 rare components. Sometimes it'll be garbage culinary components, other times it'll be rumbling components. Who knows? There's literally no reason not to have it with you. Every other piece of gear I'm wearing is just for damage. Whatever gives you the highest damage bonus, the better. I would recommend wearing a piece of unaugmented, non-degradable power armor for your non-scav piece of gear just to save on divine charges. I had an extra Armadillo chain skirt lying around, so I wore that instead of my augmented one. As you can see, I've only got 4 Capsarii in this room. The reason is really simple. 5 is a pain in the ass. Let me explain. You'll obviously be using aggression potions here, without question. Holy Agroverloads is what I'm using. That's a hard word to say. Agroverloads. Agroverloads. Agro-overloads? With 5 caps, you need to stand here-ish to effectively aggro them when they spawn. The problem is that makes AoE looting a bit funky. See, with the Lorehound pet, you can expand your area loot range, but the caps can still sometimes wander outside of it when you're standing in this spot. But with only 4 caps, you could stand here, and your loot range won't be as tight. The caps can wander a little bit without going outside your area loot. If you play on mobile, your area loot is the size of a small village, but playing on mobile is also really annoying. The loot window always closes when all the loot gets picked up when you press loot all. I ain't dealing with that. So I opted for fewer, less frustrating kills per hour with 4 caps than more very frustrating kills per hour with 5 caps. Also, I think the difference is a factor of like 10%. With 4 caps, I was killing around 900 per hour. With 5, you could probably get 1,000 if you're really attentive. It's all AFK anyway. Oh, I have to AFK for an extra 3 hours when you're talking about 60 plus hours. Who cares? And that brings us to the numbers. 900 per hour with a 1 in 64 drop rate for any key means about 14 keys per hour. Some hours were better, hitting over 20. Other hours were terrible, netting only 10. It all averages out though. Fortunately, the equilibrium aura only lasts 2 hours, and 2 hours is just about how much I could stand doing this before getting super bored. Then I take a break and come back after the aura resets and go again. It's a long grind, but it's surprisingly forgiving. Rather than collecting 100 of each key before killing the Legios, I gathered a few dozen of each in preparation for a PVM stream. I didn't want to overgrind the caps and get more keys than I needed. Alright, let's kill some Legios. Legio Primus, the easiest of the 6. Every quarter of his health he loses, both the lightning he spawns on the ground and his basic magic attacks increase in potency. As long as you can avoid the lightning and keep deflect magic up, he's little more than a target dummy. Hey! I'm JJS. This signet is dedicated to you. Alright, signet 1, nice. Legio Secundus. As his health drops, he throws his lightning orbs more frequently, ultimately ceasing his basic magic attacks in favor of throwing only lightning orbs. All speculation. Really? Alright. Legio Tertius. Tertius will summon allies to come to his aid. First, 2 Roarii, next a single Gladius, and finally, a Capsarius. The Roarii deal negligible damage, but the Gladius can stun you, leaving you open to take a lot of damage from Tertius's lightning orb attacks. And the Capsarius will not only heal Tertius, but will reduce the damage he takes. Using area of effect attacks to take out the Capsarius is not only beneficial, but recommended. Okay, so here's what we'll do. I'll buy a bunch of Twitter bots. Okay? That's step 1. And I'll optimize them and reprogram them to vote for me. Hey! Signet 3. Legio Quartus. Every quarter of his health he loses, Legio Quartus will teleport his combatant next to him and drop another lightning orb on that location. Adventurers that damage him too quickly can find themselves teleported back to a lightning pool they just ran out of, so be careful. Does anyone ever get excited when they hit 2,147? And you're just like, oh, that's the number. That's the RuneScape number. I hate it when I get a clue scroll that's worth 2.147 mil. Because then I get really excited, and then I realize, oh, gone 2 max cash caskets now. Signet 4. Hey, buddy. Oh, do it. Oh, man. I have a fork right here. I wish I had a spoon. Why is this here? What was I?
Not my job to flesh it out.
No, it's my job to try and ask you.
And I'm shutting your butt down.
Legio Quintus. At 75 and 25% health, Quintus will spawn a line of Ascension that stretches from the west side of the room to the east, crossing through his combatant's location. At 50%, the line goes from north to south. Standing on or crossing this line will inflict heavy damage. Standing close to Quintus in order to deal more damage will make maneuvering about the arena more difficult. If that's an issue for you, perhaps it's best to remain near the edges. Oh, that's who my first sponsor should be. It should be a sunblock company. You know, all these people getting Manscaped ads. I'd just be like, no, it's sunblock. It's good for your skin. Do you know what killed Bob Marley? Metastasized melanoma. That's what got him. It was on his toe. Acrolentiginous melanoma. Oh, but it's okay, well, this specific melanoma isn't caused by sunlight. So I guess that's probably a bad example on my part. But point is, just because you think you have a low risk of sunburn doesn't mean you can't get melanoma. So skin checks are important. Sunblock is important. This is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. Please consult your doctor if you experience sunblock lasting more than 4 hours. Today there aren't many people called Lance, but back in medieval times, people were called Lancelot. How's it going? It's going well, RS Valiant. We are up to 4 signets. We got 3 of them in the span of an hour, and now we're on the worst boss of all of them. Oops, I died. All right, one more key. This is gonna be the signet. I can feel it. Can you feel it? Are you feeling it, Mr. Krebs? All right, here it comes. Man. Scammed. Alright, sex time. Legio Sextus, the final Legio. As he weakens, the lightning orbs he throws produce ground lightning that lasts much longer than that of the other Legios. Along with this, the area the lightning takes up is much larger, resulting in an arena full of lightning. Fortunately, his room is one of the largest, so maneuvering during this fight shouldn't be too hard. At least with Sextus, the only thing, his lightning expands. It grows. Yeah, I'm 12, by the way. Like, it's like, the word says sex. It's jokes. Tee-hee. No signal. Oh, well. Well, that's the last of that key. Thought to be 405 years old, Ming was later determined to be 507 years old, although the clam had previously been killed to make this determination. The size of the clam was 87 by 73 millimeters. That's really tiny. 87 millimeters, 8.7 centimeters, 2.5. It was about like, what, 3.5, 4 inches? Something like that? Yeah. This is a small clam. About average. We asked 1,000 men to self-report their measurements, and we've determined the average male is a liar. Nice. Quintus signet. All right, cool. Piss off, Quintus. You're a pain in the ass. If we manage to get the last signet in 9 keys, that'd be amazing. That'd be the full, that'd be a crossbow. All right, last Sextus key. And then after this, we'll do more Primus. Maybe get a second signet. Maybe get some more keys. Never lucky. I can't remember what Primus does. He just does more he just does more damage. He's not a problem. What was that? What is this? Signet 1. Another Signet 1. Dope. I do love that it's basically like, yeah, they all had feathers. They're all goofy little birds. I love them so much. This is Utah Raptor, this big boy. This is Micro Raptor. Oh, that one's cute. Oh, I like that one. Oh my god, look at that claw. This has got a friggin' sword for a foot. Look at these little friggin' arms. It's so... I love them. I love them so much. If they weren't meant to be eaten, they wouldn't be made out of food. Well, that's how I try to justify the cannibalism, but everybody's just like, no, you can't do that. They have rights. It's an interesting thought. What'll be the next life form that develops archaeology? They come across our bones and be like, oh, this was an ancient civilization. And then everyone's going to be like, no, that's crazy. It's crazy pseudoscience, but they'll be right that time. It'll be so strange because in that future, we'll still have, like, if we disappear, right? And there's some other life form in, like, 500 million years that shows up. I don't know. Octopuses grow legs. They'll find our space debris, or even just like our evidence throughout the solar system. Like, even if all the orbits decay over that time, we'll still have debris on Mars and the moon. Archaeologists in the future are going to be so confused. They'll find the pyramids, and then they'll find things like the Eiffel Tower or the Statue of Liberty. They might survive. Then they'll go to Vegas, and they'll be like, why are these here too? Vegas was the prototype. Signet 3. Yeah, I'm pretty lucky with this. I shouldn't have said that. I'm never going to get a Sextus key. If they know you're lucky, they turn off your rare drop chances. Ah, but I am a streamer. So it fixes it. So I took a cryptography class, and that was like week 2 in pseudo-random number generation. That it gets turned off if you're playing RuneScape and you're a streamer. Back to Quintus. Ugh. You dare resist the Ascended? Yes, I do. We have 2 Primus, Secundus, and Tertius, 1 Quartus and Quintus, and no Sextus.